And another interesting point on this Martha-Mickey discussion is that even after Martha... Well, you know why Martha couldn't be in Children of Earth was because Chris Chibnall poached her for Law and Order UK. So when he couldn't get her full-time, he still thought he could get Freema, the actress, for like a cameo scene, like Code was, talking about cameos earlier, for Day One, which is, the second Torchwood episode titled Day One, but this Day One, Children of Earth Day One. And the script for that scene you can read, it's in that book, The Writer's Tale, but it's basically towards the start of the episode where, when Jack and Yanto are trying to find a kid to experiment on or something.
Yeah.
Jack calls up Martha on the hub computers and she says, oh yeah, we know a unit guy that's experimented on one of the kids to see what's happening. And Jack goes, oh, give us the deets. And she says, nah, top secret unit info. And then they just chat the shit about her being engaged or whatever for a while. And interestingly, in that scene, it's to that Tom guy who I barely remember from Doctor Who, but was the character she was originally getting married to. But then they never actually, I think, mentioned him by name as the man she got married to in Torchwood Series 2 or Doctor Who Series 4 or whatever it was. And so it got retconned into being Mickey, funnily enough, in the end. In one of the most bizarre scenes of David Tennant's last episode, when Martha and Mickey are randomly a couple.
Yeah, you don't even get to see the full creature, which I thought was, it's probably for budget reasons as well. Just
its projectile vomit.
Yeah, although, the vomit really annoyed me early on because it had that really awful splat noise. It was like a comedic splat noise. It gets dropped sort of halfway through when the story starts to get really dark. It doesn't make the splat noise anymore, but it really annoyed me at the start. It kept making it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Do you know what gets me? Its howl is the exact same howl in the very first episode of the revived Doctor Who, Christopher Eccleston, the big orange Nestine consciousness. It's the exact same sound effect as its howl.
Okay, there can be sad endings sometimes, but ultimately things do work out. There is happy endings. They certainly don't tend to, not that I recall anyway, kill children. So, yes, they probably would. Okay.
That's like the one time.
Yeah, actually, that's true. Oh, I forgot that they're not restored at the end. Anyway. Oh, shit. You just reminded me of something. Okay, I was gonna make this point, but I forgot it, but now I've remembered it. Okay, I was looking for situations in which the Doctor is faced with an impossible decision, and he makes the companion step in. We see it in things. Also, this is Moffat era, but it happens in Parting of the Ways, and it happens in, not that he asks Rose to step in there, it happens by coincidence, but then it happens in things like Thin Ice and Kill the Moon, etc, etc. There's this idea that you could, if you wanted to, which I sort of do because I quite like it, the idea that the Doctor, when he is faced with an impossible decision, he offloads the responsibility to someone else because he doesn't want it on his conscience personally. Like, for example, yet again, this is a Moffat episode, so I'm not saying that this informed anything to do with Children of Earth or r.t.d's version of the Doctor, etc, etc. Though we know that Moffat and r.t.d are in each other's pockets, even though it was a Sarah Dollard episode anyway. But this, I'm just sort of broader speaking, Moffat era. Anyway, this is a Sarah Dollard episode, but in Thin Ice, for example, when they're deciding what to do with the big whale in the river, and the Doctor essentially gives the decision over to Bill because this is like an impossible situation. You can take a huge risk and potentially wipe out London or whatever it is, or kill a lot of people, or everyone on the something like that. You're going to kill a lot of people if it goes wrong when you release the whale, or you can leave everything as is, leave the people safe, but the whale suffering. So it's kind of like it's not really an impossible decision because you know what the right thing to do is there. It's release the whale and take the risk, and it paid off, right? It paid off. Because this is Doctor Who, we're going by Doctor Who logic. Obviously that's the correct decision to make, going by Doctor Who logic. And even then it's like that whole idea is like what is the worth of society if it's on the back of someone suffering and all this stuff, It's all about how you value a life. So it's kind of like, okay, well, you can leave the whale there, but what does that say about humanity if they profit off suffering? Anyway, that's not the point. It's the idea that the Doctor sort of offloads these difficult decisions, or he's pushed into a tough situation and the companion saves the day. And I think that is it sort of ties in with my idea that maybe the Doctor's or lack of involvement in something like of Children on Earth was a conscious decision, or maybe not conscious, but something made him not doing that because he couldn't offload the responsibility. Or he was offloading the responsibility. He did it to Jack. He offloaded it to Jack, because I can't imagine that the Doctor would never hear about the 456. And, you know, maybe... So I feel like him leaving it to Jack, even though he becomes aware of it, and presumably maybe long after it's happened, so he knows how it played out. It's kind of like, oh, just leave Jack to do that and deal with the trauma of murdering a child to save the day, because I don't want to do it, you know. And I think also like there is idea that the Doctor is, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because I've not watched Parting of the Ways in quite a while. But am I right in saying that the way that Parting of the Ways plays out is that he can either choose to wipe out the Dalek fleet and therefore also kill everyone on Earth, or he can choose to not do it, save everyone, air quotes, save everyone on Earth, but the Dalek fleet would remain and therefore potentially go on to spread out through the universe and wipe out everyone. And he chooses not to release the Delta Wave or whatever, and therefore saving the Earth, air quotes, but leaving the Dalek fleet, and this whole coward or killer thing, and he chooses coward. I'm pretty sure that's how it plays out, isn't it? He's like,
yes.
Yeah, that's it precisely.
Yeah. Okay, right. Okay, I knew I was remember it, but I wasn't too sure. But then obviously it turns out he doesn't have to do anything anyway, because Rose appears, and it's sheer coincidence up until that moment that Rose got those powers and saved the day and wiped out the Dalek fleet without any sort of consequences to humans, and also saved Jack and everything. Really, in that moment, the Doctor was sort of, again, the whole point is an impossible decision, but this wasn't the Doctor coming up with a third option, because, again, he didn't know that Rose was doing this thing, or that she'd, you know, accidentally absorbed the vortex or whatever. So it's kind of like, that was the Doctor being a coward in that moment, because he couldn't deal with the idea of making the direct decision to kill innocence. He couldn't deal with it, so he gives up, even though by doing so he was essentially guaranteeing the deaths of even more innocents, because it wouldn't just be the people on Earth, it'd be everyone across the universe. But the difference is that he would not be, in a sense, directly responsible, because he's not pulling the trigger, whereas if he released the Delta Wave, he would be pulling the trigger. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to say any decision was right or wrong, because that's sort of irrelevant here, but it's more like, and also like, I'm not in a position to make those decisions, but the Doctor sort of choosing not to act, preferring inaction over direct action that kills innocents, even though it was it's sort of killing a few to save even more. He just stands back and sort of lets things play out as they do. So Rose coming in, again, he had no control over that. So it's like that sort of idea that whether he was consciously aware of it or not, or whatever, the whole idea of the 456, that was another impossible decision. You kill some to save more, and obviously to save the day they had to kill an innocent, so maybe his lack of involvement was because his morality and his sort of, you know, way of solving things does not compute with what had to happen with the 456, and that's maybe like a reason he wasn't involved. Aside from the fact that obviously he couldn't be involved because of Torchwood and everything, put that out to the side for a moment. Just for a character standpoint, either he made the active decision not to get involved because he knew that it would result in the death, he would have to directly cause the death of an innocent or death of innocence or something. Do you know what I mean? I'm saying,
I'm steadfastly refusing to get into a discussion about the Parting of the Ways.
Why? Coward?
Any day.
I don't remember the Parting of the Ways well enough. I'm just putting this forth as an idea. I'm not even saying I necessarily subscribe to it, but I just love thinking about this sort of stuff, and I love thinking about...
Please like and subscribe.
Shut up. And I love thinking about Jack as a Doctor mirror/parallel, and his role in Torchwood as that sort of Doctor figure, and how that works for him sometimes and how it doesn't, and how Torchwood is essentially as a commentary on Doctor Who. You know, I'm really fascinated with that idea, which is why I get hung up on this whole thing of the Doctor not being involved, because yes, the simple explanation is r.t.d. doesn't put the Doctor in Torchwood because he doesn't want kids to want to watch Torchwood, you know, because it's an adult show and everything. That is the absolute simplest explanation. But I fucking love thinking about it from this perspective. Why the in-universe reason, things played out as they did. Anyway, sorry, I need to stop rambling. Doctor Who. That's it. Okay,
I just want to put forward one radical idea, which is that you were talking about offloading, the burden of, action to a companion in terms of the Doctor. My mind instantly went to the Prime Minister in this story and how he does that to John Frobisher.
Oh yeah.
So if you want to take the Tennant hate to its absolute extreme, which I do, you could say that the Tennant analogue is the Prime Minister in this story, almost, in that sense.
On that topic of Yanto's sexuality and stuff, here's a hot scoop for you all. This is a very real fact and anecdote.
Okay.
So you know how I was saying, I can't remember if I said this earlier now, but when Series 3 was originally going to be 13 episodes, of course the original idea was Chris Chibnall would be like the pseudo-showrunner, the head writer on it, like the first two series were, since Russell T Davies didn't have all the time. But then, this is also described in the writer's tale, Chris Chibnall walked because he was doing Law & Order UK. So he couldn't do that anymore, which is, I presume it's one of the reasons that former Series 3 fell apart. However, Chibnall did get a little involvement on one part of the series. This is very true, by the way. And that is the end of episode 4, where, as you say, Yanto was moving more towards being recognised as, not heterosexual, but rather bisexual, in a homosexual relationship with a man and everything. And Chibnall, because this was written in a writer's room, this series. This is one of r.t.d's very few times doing that. I think it might have been the first time he ever wrote treatments. He talks about that in the writer's tale. So he broke out the story, for the most part, in a room with other writers and whatnot. But where do you think the idea to kill the man who'd begun to identify as bisexual came from?
Wait, was it Chibnall?
John Fay. Oh, Chibnall.
What was it, Chibnall?
It was actually...
This didn't happen. None of that happened. I'm just having a go.
Did you just make all that up?
All of it is true, except for Chibnall being involved in the writing at all.
What?
Right, okay.
Neil, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
Just a little Series 11
Honestly.
inspired bury your gays thing. On that note of the parting of the ways, a bit of a Doctor redemption story, I'm gonna have a tackle at my own redemption story right now and tell an r.t.d anecdote that is actually completely true. And Giga and Tomtit can back me up here, because they can both independently verify this is true, because they know.
Yeah,
they know this.
Trust them, not you.
So, now I hate to do this. I hate to, I guess, rip away the mirror, or show you the mirror, or show you how the sausage is made. Is maybe the way to put this. But I'm making break the mirrors. Okay, we'll get to that on the next podcast too. But anyway, now, Code, what are you going to say?
Hey, do you remember Parting of the... No, I'm not going to run out Parting of the Ways. But see, just that sort of idea that he thinks that he's absolved of blame if he doesn't hand over, for example, the blank page himself, which is really fascinating, and it sort of it adds to the evil.
What annoys me with Parting of the... Okay, I'm going to make this point in one sentence. I don't think it's the Deus Ex Machina that's cheap at all. What's cheap about Parting the Ways to me is that Base Under Siege is just the laziest structure for a Doctor Who finale, and I can never respect one that does it that much. But the Rose thing works completely fine for me. It's just a karmic, rewarding to the Doctor. It's just how that kind of story works. It's totally on the level of storytelling that Series 1 was doing. But the Base Under Siege thing is lame. That's my hot take.
I was just to be clear, just so we know where we stand, I was never criticising the Rose thing. I was never saying it was a bad end at all, or that it was silly or stupid or whatever. At no point did I mean to say that. That wasn't what I was trying to say.
Oh yeah, I was criticising Gig's takes here.
Okay, good.
Oh wow.
Fuck you,
okay.
Gig, sorry. No, not really.
I mean,
offloading it onto Gig.
In my opinion, the use of such a conventional structure as Based Under Siege in Parting of the Ways, and contrasting it with the soap opera kind of chip shop scenes, is the entire point of that episode. But go off. And speaking of which, on that same note, I think r.t.d does something in terms of taking the conventional narrative structure in order to subvert it. That's the same thing we get in Day 4 in Children of Earth. See, I linked it back to Torchwood. When we get Torchwood trying to, we get Jack and the Anto doing the whole epic plan to storm Thames House and give the big speech to the alien, which completely falls apart. So there you go. Clever RTD.
I gladly back down. That's actually a very good point. I haven't thought of that.
Neil
Nice
has
work.
profaned the gig. And the gig won't back down.
Be it on my head.
This is going to be really, really vague because I cannot cite my sources because I can't remember where I read it. I can remember sort of where I read it. A while back, I was reading about... This is really, really off topic. I will connect it in a moment. I was reading about sort of NBC's Hannibal, and long story short, there are...
Oh, we love that show.
Yeah, it's very good. I was reading sort of academic texts on it because why else did I go to university if not to access all the studies? Anyway, so I did a deep delve into it and viewing it from an academic standpoint, and a big part of it, obviously, being as Hannibal as the show that is applying sort of queer theory to it, and those sorts of readings, and also particularly things like Oscar Wilde's the whole aestheticism. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know.
Sure.
The whole idea, the art for art's sake, and I remember reading. Oh, God, I need to find it now. It was a book that someone wrote that was essentially analysing Hannibal from this sort of standpoint of through a lens of what Oscar Wilde believed and relating everything back to these sort of old sort of stories, not just Oscar Wilde, but a lot of different queer texts essentially. And so I always felt like this scene with Jack. It's an interest. So this book. God, I need to find it now. It's going to haunt me if I don't.
I didn't think Sandifer had published those blogs as a book.
I don't know. I've not read anything by Sandifer on this topic, gotta be honest with you. But it was by some academic from America. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but anyway. It's the whole idea that when it comes to Hannibal, it was talking about this whole idea that you can either have art or you can have a future. Oh, no, sorry. You can have a future in the form of art or you can have a future in form of family. But you can't have both.
Which is something Doctor Who has dealt with. Kill the Moon deals with this very well. Kill the Moon deals with this a lot, and I think it does it very well. Many don't. Anyway, in terms of this reproductive futurism as this something humanity truly believes in, and it's a completely defensible position, and it's a completely the TARDIS wiki would not term it as not valid. It's an ideology, very strong, very effective, but of course that it doesn't work. That leads to the failed ending of episode 4.
Yeah.
Yanto dies, and it's to turn it back to queer theory and stuff. It's very fascinating to read it in light of Yanto and Jack are a homosexual relationship. I'm probably not the best to be asking this question, but something that confuses me with this reproductive futurism angle of seeing homosexual relationships as this kind of end state conflicting with children seen as a legacy and stuff is it seems like it's really weirdly privileging just the literal tangible ability to birth a child to me. Do you know what I mean? There's plenty of heterosexual couples that for whatever reasons can't literally birth a child, and they have, surrogacy children, or they adopt or whatever, and they're still, even in society, very socially, we still consider these people parents. This isn't just only good people really recognize these people as being parents. It's, very common that, it's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 that you might have been his father, but you weren't his daddy, or whatever. This is a very commonly recognized thing. I'm sorry, I'm nearly getting to your point, Code, but
okay.
I'm literally just about to ask. So, yeah, what do you think? What do I mean? Does it make sense?
So, yeah, no, I get what you mean. So the whole idea of the sort of futurism, reproductive futurism thing is adhering to the idea that sort of nuclear family idea, the sort of perfect idealized family, having children, being parents, and that's presented as the ideal, but it must be said that that sort of idea is quite outdated now. Well, of course it is outdated, but it still sees sort of support almost, where people still seem to believe that this is the ideal in life, that what you should work towards is getting married, having children, and that's your goal, that's the meaning of life. But certainly, more recent generations have rejected that, and it's like, and it's not that people view having children is necessarily like pointless or whatever. Like, some people will always want to and everything, but there's certainly more of a push towards like, no, there's more to life and sort of more to the concept of legacy than having kids, you know. And certainly
more than this.
Yeah, there's more than this. When it comes to the sort of, when I was talking about what I was reading about the whole negative future and all that stuff, that was in the context of Hannibal. That was presenting the idea that your legacy can be in the form of things other than children. In that case, it was art. So you have a legacy in art, and in a way, when it comes back to Jack, it's something, his legacy is Torchwood and his work and everything, and his role as a hero. So it's more like the sort of idea behind it is inherently sort of flawed, and that it does present the idea of the nuclear family as somehow ideal, but it doesn't actually mean it that way. It's not trying to present that idea as, this is what, this is the good state and anything else is a subversion and therefore bad. It's more like trying to say, this is what society perceives as ideal, but it's not the only option, and it's not the best option, and certainly, not everyone wants this. And in the case of direct reproduction, like, certainly nowadays we acknowledge the fact that you don't have to directly have a child to be a parent. You can adopt, you can even just be like a sort of a father or mother figure to someone, and that still is emotionally resonant as physically birthing or creating the child in some way. I'm pretty sure it's like a really big sort of topic.
Do you know what's also not necessarily a positive thing? That little scene is directly followed up by another audio drama, which is about Alonzo and Jack getting cock-blocked by this humongous beetle that's played by Katie Manning that invades the ship.
You've done it again. Oh God. Okay. That's disappointing. I've still not listened to that. I plan to, but I feel like, God damn it, why am I not writing Doctor Who? I could fix this for them. This is why I don't want a Jack and the Doctor reunion. Partially because it's been so long since Children of Earth, I feel like they wouldn't bother to deal with this sort of emotional fallout of it. But also I feel like it's too easily written, especially when Jack is in Doctor Who. It's his sort of, the depth of him is too easily forgotten, and I worry that it would be reduced and you wouldn't see Jack be angry, even though I think he should be. Stop making Minecraft villager noises, Neo.
I'm going to let Tom make an actual point in a second. I'm going to cut this sentence out completely, but you should just know it, because this is one Big Finish mentioned way too many. But the Sixth Doctor and Jack meeting is actually really well played. You'd all definitely enjoy it. It's very interestingly done. It's quite emotional, very funny. They handled that really, really well. But of course, that's the Doctor way before Children of Earth, so not really relevant. Tom, what's the actual worthwhile point you were going to make?
I think not the Doctor, Captain Jack appearing in A Good Man Goes to War, it would have felt kind of crass. Like, Torchwood had almost outgrown Doctor Who at that point. Not to, I love Moffat Who, obviously. I think we all do, but it would have felt weird and like too much to address. And not even Moffat, who is great at sort of hacking the previous lore. I don't think even he could have done it sufficiently, to be honest.
The idea that he was going to get beheaded, this is total. There's no corroboration of this. This is totally just a fan supposition. But the idea that the headless monks would have beheaded Jack, and so Jack's beheaded head would eventually become the face of both thing. It's total fan bullshit. But I secretly really, really like it. I think that would have been really cool to see. But okay,
I feel like it's the only sort of explanation for him becoming the face of both that sort of makes sense with what we know. I mean, you could come up with many different theories, and in a sense, we don't really need to know how he ended up in that state. But I like the fact that there is a sort of organisation out there that are very good at chopping people's heads off. And if anyone's going to manage to chop Jack's head off, it's going to be the people who are solely dedicated to chopping heads off. So, but I agree with Tit there, saying that he shouldn't, I agree that he shouldn't have appeared in A Good Man Goes to War. The episode would have been overstuffed. I feel like it wouldn't be good for Jack as a character. And I don't know. I just feel like, again, after seeing the sort of depth that Torchwood takes Jack to, I almost struggle to not really struggling to enjoy, but I just feel like the sort of Doctor Who version of him, as much as I really love it, it sort of feels like it feels emptier to me, but then it's also easy to sort of interpret as the Jack in Doctor Who is obviously, in a sense, hiding his real self because he's interacting with the Doctor, and that seems like something he would very much do, given that he does hide his real self from people, and certainly he would hide it from someone he at least at that point in time, he idolises. Can I just say that I really hate the way the 10th Doctor treats Jack? I really hate it. I was thinking about it last night, getting angry about it to myself, because why?
Well,
here's a good question. Sorry. What?
It's because of his nature as a hello. It's because of his nature as a fixed point in time, isn't it? Because he says he actually can't look at Jack, like it makes him physically uncomfortable.
No, yeah, I think that's bullshit. And we know that it's not that big a deal for him because he asked Jack to travel with him at the end of The Last Time Lords. But I get that that's how they try to justify it, because he is a massive dick to Jack. Not only the fact that obviously it was was it 9 that chose to abandon them? Or 10?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
9th Doctor, Eccleston.
Yeah. So, but it's like Jack gets really treated badly by the Doctor very often, and then obviously 10 tries to justify it like, oh yeah, it's because you're a fixed point in time, you're disgusting to look at, which is one thing, I suppose, but again, like I say, he can't be that disgusting if he wants to travel with him, but then obviously Jack at that point has decided that no, he's sort of given up on the Doctor in a sense. His place is with Torchwood, and those are the people where that's where his heart truly lies and everything, which is great for his character development. What I mean about specifically treating him the 10th Doctor is a dick to him is not just the horrible things he says to him, because those sort of after Utopia, that does sort of like calm down because he sort of seems to get over that. But I think, right, maybe we disagree. I think it's a dick move for the Doctor to continually take his vortex manipulator away from him. A hypocritical move. Because
yeah, I hate that moment. It plays really oddly. Like it's played too offhandedly, and it's Jack's like, oh, okay, he's like kind of dopily just taking it, but that's really like it's a big deal, and he's just so happy for the Doctor to do it. I've always disliked that moment, and I love Journey's End, but I hate that moment in it.
Yeah, the fact that it happens twice, obviously it happens Last of the Time Lords and it happens in Journey's End, but I feel like it's so horrible from the Doctor, because the Doctor can't deal with having a linear life because, partially boredom, but also a linear life is just inherently more traumatizing for an immortal than someone who can just, when you can sort of hop about and meet all new people all the time, you don't have to stick around for the endings in a way. And whether that's, good or not, like, that's besides the point. You're gonna see everyone you love die. Part of the reason why the Doctor leaves is the whole idea he doesn't like goodbyes, because he knows that no matter what happens, he is going to have to see everyone he loves die at some point or leave him at some point. So the fact that he has the option of running away from that and essentially avoiding the trauma is probably good for your mental state when you're immortal. So like taking that away from Jack when he can't. Forcing Jack to live a linear life when Doctor can't live one himself is so hypocritical, so cruel, and in addition to that, he frames it as sort of like, you're so irresponsible, I can't trust you with this. Well, first of all, the Doctor is pretty fucking irresponsible at times. He can't be trusted with timelines most of the time. Anyway, he can't be trusted himself. Timeline. He can't be trusted with the TARDIS. So why is he framing it like I'm morally superior to you and I'm so much more responsible? I would actually argue that Jack, after the events of Torchwood and stuff, is probably a bit more responsible than the Doctor, in fact. So, and he doesn't have the sort of vanity issues that 10 has. Okay, maybe a little bit. He doesn't have the same issues as 10 has. He's not entitled like the Doctor can be. I'm not saying that Jack could never have those character flaws depending on the situations, and God knows how Children of Earth might have played out if Jack had that power. We'll never know, but but certainly like framing it as Jack is too irresponsible, and like Jack was a time agent, and yes, at the time he was a time agent. God, I'm saying time a lot. At the time he was a time agent, he was irresponsible then, but he's not anymore. He still understands the principle of protecting the timelines. He still understands that, and certainly he has probably spent more effort maintaining timelines and keeping them, you know, in order as a time agent than the Doctor sometimes does. The Doctor's a bit chaotic with the way he deals with time travel. Anyway, I just think it's a hypocritical dick move from Ted to take that away from him, and I feel like it is silly that Jack just sort of mindlessly accepts it, because, and again, I know it's because they don't have time to delve into it. It would also require a sort of a knowledge of Jack from Torchwood, because the Jack in Doctor Who is maybe you wouldn't be entirely wrong to sort of assume, just based off of what we see in Doctor Who, that he is a bit irresponsible, a bit like sort of, you know, can't be trusted. But in reality, he can be trusted. We know from Torchwood that he is responsible. He is a great leader. He is, you know, he's certainly not as ridiculous as the Doctor sometimes with stuff like that. So anyway, don't have a point. 10th Doctor's a dick. That's my point. There you go. Enjoy.
Yeah, if we're gonna if I can evolve that point of dicks, this is a really inappropriate segue.
No,
I was.
This is a family-friendly podcast, Neo.
I just wanted to make a point about Barrowman. That's all.
No,
it's not that. It's
How's
going.
it compared to? It's a shot of Reese. That's what I want to know. Is that what we're talking about, right?
No, okay.
Wait,
this is a wholesome point. Wholesome point.
Okay.
Wholesome point. Wholesome point.
You know, put up a visual.
How do you evolve dicks into a wholesome point?
This is a very wholesome point. This is nothing. This is nothing to do with Barrowman's body.
We see more than his ass in Children of Earth, I'll have you know.
Well,
do you not remember security cam footage?
I missed it. I was
Full
on like
frontal.
1.5 speed. I didn't catch it.
We see none of Barrowman in the point I'm trying to make, which is going back to A Good Man Goes to War.
Okay.
What's really fascinating is the reason Barrowman, aka Captain Jack, isn't in that episode, the Series 6 mid-series finale of Doctor Who, is because of scheduling. He was busy on Arrow, I believe, at the time, which was over in America, and so he couldn't make the dates to be on set in the UK for filming A Good Man Goes to War. And John Barrowman really loves Torchwood and Doctor Who, and he really loves being on those shows, and so he was mighty, understandably, you know, I was annoyed as him, because we can all, you know, say, oh, it wouldn't have worked for, you know, this reason and that reason, but I would have adored to see Captain Jack on screen and Doctor Who again.
I'm sure I would have loved it as well.
So,
like, just the novelty of it.
Barrowman cared, you know, as much, well, probably more than us about this, and so I believe what happened after that is he had provisions put into his future contracts that he is always allowed to abscond briefly from whatever show he's filming to go reappear on Doctor Who.
First of all, that's really cute, and second of all, what does this have to do with the dicks?
Oh, because it's just
Aside
related
from
to...
John...
That's it.
Oh, okay.
How does this play
Well,
into...
more
Does
importantly...
that constitute John being a dick in your view to his future contractors?
it's just-
or
No,
what?
because
I
John
hear
shows
dick,
his
I think...
dick a lot.
Yeah, I'm not calling the man a dick. He's a lovely
He
man.
shows it in Torchwood.
He's-
Guys, I forgot what episode it's in. When Jack's in the cell, go check the security cam footage. You get an
Day 2.
eyeful.
Yes, day 2 you see his dick, yeah.
Day two. It's fully on show. Enjoy. Have fun with that one. Take some screenshots. Or don't, actually, that'd be a bit weird.
The only reason I would choose day 4 is for the scene in the conference government room where they're negotiating like which children. I think that's by far the best scene in the whole serial.
I agree about that.
A certain voice of some certain monsters who runs a certain company, and seeing him there almost like, it was like really distracting. I was like,
yeah, I couldn't stifle my smirk.
Because we meme him. It's like one thing, like if you know about Big Finish and know about him, it's like Mr. Briggs. It's one thing if you know him and it's like, oh, it's him, but we meme him so much that I'm just like, holy fuck, it's Briggs. You know, it's like Briggs his existence in the episode is inherently funny. No offense to Briggs, he was a good actor in it and everything.
So
he was
to contextualize this, Nicholas Briggs does the voices for like nearly all the monsters in Doctor Who, the Daleks, the Cybermen, all sorts of other ones, and he's the executive producer of Big Finish, which are the company that make most of the audio dramas for everything, especially for Doctor Who.
And Torchwood, but he doesn't do those.
Although,
but he doesn't do this.
Yeah, James Goss is like the showrunner of that range, but of the actual company, he's the executive producer. Anyway, I totally bought him in the role. It's a very minor role. In the behind the scenes for Children of Earth, he talks about initially when he was playing the role, he played it very commanding, and Eurus Lynn had to say to him, remember this character is, much lower in the hierarchy, and he's kind of laughing about, he's so used to playing Daleks that he's used to having to try and take over the room just by force of his voice, but when he's an actual physical actor in the scene, he had to kind of, I've got to dial this back, I've got to be a little slinkier and less commanding in the scene, which I thought was interesting. Yeah.
I thought it was good in the role. When I say it sort of was inherently humorous, it was just the amusement of seeing him. It wasn't like anything his performance. His performance was good. It was solid and it worked. So that wasn't an insult to his acting ability because it was great.
Although originally he didn't kill Stephen off in the first draft, and Julie Gardner basically told him, "You obviously want to kill Stephen off. Write the actual story, Russell. Go back and fix it," and so he did. But yeah, Children of Earth I think is his strongest finale of anything because there's no...
Did you just...
What?
I'm... okay, sorry, keep talking. It's just... I think, were you just talking about years and years then?
Yeah, I thought he was talking about Stephen Lyons.
Are you just...
No!
Yeah, that confused the shit out of me. I'm so lost.
Stephen Harkness, not Stephen Lyons. I know Harkness isn't his real last name.
Oh god, that's Stephen.
I was
Shit, I'm so stupid.
This.
I forgot the grandson's name. I'm so sorry.
No, Stephen.
Right, please carry on. Please, I'm so embarrassed. Please carry on.
Originally in Children of Earth, the finale, he didn't kill off Stephen in the first draft of episode 5. Julie Gardner said, "Come on, kill Stephen," and so he did.
Neil, what you were saying with r.t.d there, in Torchwood, he doesn't pull any punches, and he does sort of deliver fully on what he intends, and that sort of tragedy, and the not quite happy ending, well, not at all happy ending, really. But then you compare it to Doctor Who, and I think it is fascinating how he seems to hesitate and, second guess himself. We see that with the Rose storyline, where I still maintain it would have been better if they just left it as is, but then she had to come back in Journey's End, and like I said, I rewatched this last night, and she is absolutely useless in it. She's just there to justify the beach scene at the end.
I'm steadfastly refusing to debate the merits of Journey's End, of which there are so many.
Wait, hold on. Are you in support or against it?
Of the clone ending with Kendall, Tennant, and Rose?
Yes. Yeah, are you in support
I do not support
or against
that.
it?
I do not support that at all. But I support most of the rest of the episode.
Yes, no, I love Journey's End. I love the storyline, and I love the Journey's End. I'm not criticising them as a whole. I'm criticising the Rose ending, the beach scene, which
that's utter shit. That's one of the worst things to ever done. I hate that. That's terrible.
But I love the sort of crossover thing. I think it's fun. I think it's great. But the beach scene, I just feel like it cheapens Rose's original exit a lot,
cheap.
and it's just silly. So I feel like that's a case of, because r.t.d loves this unrequited love thing, that's essentially the state that Rose and Ten were left at, previously, Doomsday, so leaving them like that, it's almost like more poetic, and it's sort of, it is better. It had that emotional strength. Bringing Rose back just to have, okay, here's a clone of me that you can live out the rest of your days with, and he'll age with you and everything. It's just like, it's so cheap and empty, and it's like
cheap.
I wonder how much r.t.d. Is there any info about that in the writer's tale? We're meant to be discussing Torchwood here. Anyway, I know this is not Torchwood, but anyway. do you know anything about his mindset behind that? Because I feel like it's like it's so at odds with his what he normally does or what he wants to do.
Well, his big impulse with writing a lot is he really likes this is reductive, but pleasing audiences, kind of. He's got an actual way he describes it, but he really... And the thing is, I think the reason Doctor Who Series 1 with Eccleston is so distinct from this is because this was pre-audience. There was no audience to cater to. There was just, a dozen people who met at the Fitzroy pub back then. There was just no real... audiences r.t.d. conceives them, a populist audience back then. But after Series 1, when you could see what was popular and what wasn't, and certainly David Tennant's casting was immensely popular. Man, do I remember that. But... yeah, r.t.d., very popular style, I would say, is he likes appealing to people a lot. He likes pleasing people a lot. He likes doing big drama that gets lots of ratings. And I don't see it in a cynical way that he's like, ooh, money, high score and getting lots of ratings. It's just like he genuinely really likes getting all these people excited and into drama and entertained. But it's so at odds with the other side of r.t.d., the other wolf inside him, which is that he's a really cynical, really atheist, really, dark-minded figure that's really pessimistic about human nature. And so they're always battling inside him, these two sides, often in the same series. We covered this a lot on Years and Years podcasts, which Russell would poke out in different episodes and different scenes. It's a really interesting bit of him as a writer. So, yeah, that's my answer to that question.
It's like he has his own beliefs and everything, but then he chooses instead to go for the optimistic route for the sake of the audience. But I feel like in the case of certainly things in Doctor Who and with Rose and stuff, it's to the detriment of the story. And I think it's fascinating if you compare something like Donna's storyline to Rose's. Donna does not get a happy ending. I mean, she has the ostensibly happy ending in that she's living a peaceful life and all this stuff, but that's not really what she wanted. She's back. She gets reset. I read an article by someone who said that seeing what happened to Donna, and your mileage may vary here, was one of the most traumatic things that they'd seen in TV, not because it was like violent or anything, but it was the idea of this female character had her agencies taken from her so completely, and they compared it to other shows where sometimes it's like compared to, like, for example, in Moffat Who and stuff, there's an attempt to mind wipe Clara and Bill, and they refuse, and they get the opportunity to refuse, but Donna isn't really afforded that opportunity by the narrative. She gets it forced upon her, and also, like, and the alternative is her dying, but she doesn't even get the option to die instead. The Doctor takes it into his own hands, literally takes her head, and steals herself almost. Like this part of her, the built up, and this person was saying it was so traumatic for them watching it, especially because they related to Donna so much and everything, and I get that, and it's like just in that alone, comparing Donna and Rose's stories, that Rose gets this perfect fairy tale ending and Donna gets this really quite horrific ending. It's like there's your two wolves right there, r.t.d.
It's a violation, and it's so located around Ten's angst. It sucks.
It seems like a similar mentality that would lead to, say, the writing of, like, the ending of Rosa with Graham, his angst on the bus. Like, it's prioritizing just drama for the sake of, implications, implying.
But, like, really, you could not that it'd be perfect then, far from it, but you could have fixed it in some level if Donna had been given the choice, basically been asked, you can either die as you are, or you can live and lose yourself. And I question why she would choose losing herself. I feel like Donna wouldn't have gone for that, personally, because being who she was by that point was so important to her. But the fact is, it's just the idea that she wasn't given any choice, and the Doctor took it upon himself and stole her mind. Anyway, yeah, it's bad.
I thought you were going to quote The Dark Knight there when you were saying, "Die a hero, or live long enough to see us become the villain." calling an r.t.d.
Oh, I wish I had now.
It strikes me we're talking about memory wiping, and it just strikes me that's quite relevant to Torchwood, isn't it? Because series 1 and 2,
Yes.
one in particular, are full of references to
Retcon.
wiping people's memories without consent. Like, that's a running theme in this show. Although it's not quite as relevant in series 3, well, at all, really. So yeah, I don't know why I brought it up, but it's
Thanks,
interesting that it's something that's so woven into kind of the fabric of Torchwood, which is, a show r.t.d. created, and yet it kind of recurs in Doctor Who in this quite ugly way.
Speaking of mind wipe, my god, Unit with a garden Black Archive, that's horrible. Anyway. Mind wiping.
The Day novelisation goes into that and makes a point of how awful the Unit is treating that guy. And also with Moffat era Unit in general, you've got the Zygons, they're still keeping Harry Sullivan's genocide gas, all that stuff,
love
if
that.
you remember.
Harness is so good.
It is very much a thing in modern portrayals of Unit, including Torchwood and partially leaking into Moffat Who as well, that they're Unit bad, basically. And I think that's kind of inherited almost from all the way back with the Silurians, when, the Brigadier committed that original sin of genociding the Silurians and so on and so forth. Like, Unit is kind of the imperfect compared to the Doctor.